With the interview portion. And today it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our amazing guest, Susan Stone. So, Susan is the CEO at Blue Current, a startup that's designing high performing solid state batteries that safely and sustainably power the electric vehicle and consumer tech industries. As an award winning entrepreneurial leader, she specializes in growing companies with disruptive technologies to commercially scale and transform the industries they serve. So, Susan was also previously the CEO of the solar technology company, Ubiquitous Energy. So, prior to her executive leadership in climate tech, she was the founder and CEO of the Sierra Wasatch Capital, an early stage venture capital firm. Susan also managed the early stage investing for River Horse Investments, worked at JP Morgan in New York, and also in Los Angeles. Susan is a former investment banker in mergers and acquisitions. She holds an MBA from Georgetown University and a bachelor's degree from the Yale University. So, yeah, let's welcome Susan here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us today, Susan. So we like to start this off. This is the standard Volta question. So we ask this of all our interviewees at every Volta event. So I wanted to start off like, what is your state of charge today?
My state of charge today. Well, I have kind of a long day today because this is I'm in California, so this is an early start to be ready to be with you on camera at 8. And I'm going to go all the way through. I have a dinner tonight with two of my former colleagues from that solar technology company you mentioned. So I'm starting the day. I charged up to 85% this morning because I'm getting ready for a long journey. So I'm going to give myself 84.5 because I've burned a little bit of my battery just getting here.
That's perfect. But it's still above in the high SOC region.
Oh
so
yeah,
you're still
always.
good.
Always. I'm usually up there pretty high SOC.
Nice. So wanted to start off with your career journey and leadership. So what inspired you to get into the battery industry, and how did your career path in turn like lead to Blue Current?
Well, it's been a winding path. As you were giving my introduction, I was thinking this is an embarrassingly long introduction because I've done lots of different things. But that I think is the path for a lot of us. So I have gotten to sit around a lot of different seats here at the startup table. I've been an investment banker, so I was an advisor. I've been an investor in early stage companies. I've been a CEO, a startup CEO in the past. And I think, the different experiences I've had along that path have really led me here where I'm very, very excited to be. For the last 5 years before Blue Curren, I was the CEO at a climate tech startup, a company that spun out of MIT, very, very similar to Blue Current in that we were taking a revolutionary technology and bringing it to market. And so that's how I spent 5 years of my life, and really, really focused on climate and energy transition. And so one of the things I always said to myself, and even when I gave interviews in the solar industry, people would ask, what else would you be doing if you weren't doing this? And one of my answers was always energy storage, because energy storage unlocks renewables and is absolutely critical for energy transition. So I left that company about this time last year. And as soon as I met the board and investors and team here at Blue Current, I got pretty excited to join the battery industry and to help Blue Current through the exact same journey of going from breakthrough in the R&D lab into manufacturing and ultimately commercialization.
Yeah, that's really inspiring to see like a woman leader's backstory. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And like, if you had to reflect back on your career, what do you think were some significant moments or like achievements that you consider of like great importance?
Oh yeah, that's always a tough question for me. And I'll tell you why. I think for me, the things that feel like big moments are usually not the inflection points. And for me, I think the most important moments along my career path have been all of the day-to-day small wins and losses that I learned from that really build that experience. So I wouldn't really look back and say, it was this one thing, it was this one partner that we landed or investor
Hmm.
that we worked with or technical breakthrough. But it's more the things, and I see Dana's in the chat agreeing with me. I bet a lot of you guys agree with me. It's the day to day. What do you wake up and do every day and show up for your team, show up for your investors, show up for your customers? So those are the things that I like to celebrate more so than, the big moment when you get to ring the bell.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all these like little steps that finally lead you like in the ladder of success in many ways.
So true.
Yeah,
They're so much more important than the big thing.
that's so true. So, as a woman leading a company in a male-dominated field, what are some challenges you faced and like how did you overcome them?
So I'm smiling because my three and I got to talk last week before this, and I told her I almost was like, "Can you not ask this question?" But we're going to talk about it anyway. I think I would reframe that question. Yes, there are a lot of men in this industry, just like there are in a lot of industries. I'll start by saying at Blue Current, I think we're 42% female. So when I come to the office day by day, I am not surrounded by men. And when I sit in our executive leadership team meetings, we're about half and half. So that's my day to day. That said, in external meetings, when I'm meeting with partners, customers, investors, I'm frequently the only woman in the room. And so, I'll tell you, I don't see that as a challenge. I see it as a great opportunity. And that's why I was saying, let's reframe the question. Because to me, the question is, how do we identify our unique strengths and comparative advantages and play to them? So uh, that's what I would encourage everyone on this call to think through, male, female, however you identify, uh, figure out what do you bring to the table that's unique and that's one of your strengths and play to it. And so, I think just right off the bat, being a female CEO, I'm definitely memorable. I can go to a meeting with, 10 men from, whatever company we're talking to, and odds are they're going to remember me because I'm different. And so rather than hiding because I'm different, I've made the choice to celebrate it and just show up and be myself. So I see being female as a really big opportunity and I think a strategic advantage.
Yeah, I think this is great. Like how you can bring this to your strategic advantage and use it in uplifting like other women also around you. I think this is very inspiring, Susan. So I know we discussed about this question, but I thought this is like a super important question. Like especially like we have a lot of young women who want to reach that level that you are at right now. So this is like a very inspiring backstory.
I know,
And yeah,
we 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 went back and forth about that question, but I think you're right. And I think especially when you're just starting out, sorry, you're getting the second answer now too, but when you're just starting out, I think there's this, at least for me, there was this just kind of like I felt obligated to be a generalist and to be good at everything. And I think, as you move through your career, you certainly need to generate just kind of like a baseline of your skill set that so that you can show up and do your job and do it well. But, really paying attention to what are you good at? What are you less good at? And rather than trying to fill every gap, like spackling a wall, really figure out what you're good at and do more of that and figure out how to do less of the things that you're not as good at. Those usually align with the things you enjoy and don't enjoy. If you're lucky, that's what happens. But that's my 2 cents on just kind of how to move forward in your career is stop apologizing for the things that you're less good
Mhm.
at and start focusing on the things that you are.
Right. Stop saying sorry.
Stop saying sorry. But even like it's not just the saying, right? It's the doing, and just like stop hiding behind the things that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not good at, whatever. I'm not good at public speaking. And so I can't move into, whatever role it is because I'm not good at public speaking. Figure out what you are good at and celebrate those things and do more and more and more of them. And the roles will come to you.
I think that makes sense. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit to more on the technical and the strategic vision side. So Blue Current is known for the innovations in like safe and energy dense solid state battery, like free of flammable liquids. So what impact do you see on this technology, like for the energy transition?
Well, when I zoom all the way out to, what got me really excited about Blue Current, the answer is simple. I want to live in a world with a safer battery. I'm guessing 100% of the people on this call would agree with that. We would all love to live in a world with safer batteries. A lot of us are working on that exact challenge. So that's kind of our North Star, and my personal North Star is safer and safer and safer batteries. I think the thing that's really unique about what we're doing at Blue Current is, you said it, our battery is a fully dry solid state battery, so it does not include a liquid electrolyte. So we've been able to eliminate that component that, I think we all know is quite flammable. We're also able to do that at relatively low operating pressure and
Hmm.
silicon in our anode. So our active material in our anode is silicon, which is safe, earth abundant, not toxic. And our team has been able to pair that silicon anode with a fully dry electrolyte. And so that format, I think, provides what I think of as kind of the magic balance point between safety, energy density, and other performance like C rate and cycle life. So I'm really excited about our battery in general. And I think, what can it do for us in energy? I think the applications in mobility and transportation are obvious, right? I mean, it's a step change in range, in fast charging, and in safety that represents a safe change or a step change for the automotive industry. And I think it can be the same for utility scale and other stationary storage applications. Safety is just a critical component, and it's becoming more and more and more of a factor in customer decision making. And I think it was hard to miss the Moss Landing fire that made the news everywhere. Whether the frequency of those events is going up or not, I think is irrelevant. The more and more that they hit the news, just the bigger part of the decision-making process safety becomes. So our ability to deliver that safety while not really sacrificing energy density or other performance metrics, I think, really represents a big opportunity for stationary storage as well as for EVs. So that's just been on my mind lately. It's hard not to think about it with we're so close to the Moss Landing fire here in the Bay Area that
Yeah.
we're aware of it constantly.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a great point. Like it's so important, like to strike a balance. It's like there are so many trade-offs and everything. Like in spite of that, we need to find the perfect balance. So that being said, what do you think are like the biggest technical or the market challenges that Blue Current is solving right now, and what is your approach towards them?
I think the biggest challenges are the challenges that everyone faces at this stage, which are scaling, where we just commissioned our pilot line. We're doing process development to scale our cells up to our larger format on our pilot line, which is really exciting. And just a challenge, right? We need to do it. It takes time. We don't know what we don't know. So we're learning a ton as we go through that process. I also think for me, being new to the industry, the time frames represent a big challenge. And I'll out myself as a new industry person here. Coming from solar, the amount of time that has to elapse while we cycle batteries to test them is just a really interesting time component that we
Mm.
do not deal with. We don't deal with when we're making photovoltaics. And that extends out into the industry too, right? Decision-making cycles are quite long. Design-in cycles in automotive are quite long. So I'm getting used to all of the timelines. So I guess maybe I should highlight that one as more of a personal challenge than a Blue Current challenge. I'm the only one that it's new to. But I can get impatient with sometimes with the timelines just because I'm still getting used to how much time has to elapse.
I mean, I think it's a very tricky problem. Like some of these things do take time, but then you also have to balance like these commercialization goals. Like even though they're near term and they have like a fixed timeline, you have to balance these commercialization goals with like long-term R&D strategy. So especially like in an industry, like such a high stakes industry like batteries. So what is your approach towards balancing like the commercialization versus the R&D strategy?
My gosh, it's really hard. I think you hit on one of those day-to-day challenges that I think we're like constantly iterating on. Try something, watch what happens, learn, because I think we live in an industry where I think a lot of people rightfully, kind of got out there and talked about what they were doing. And
Hmm.
we don't all have 100% success rate on what we're able to achieve, especially on timelines that we tell the market or tell customers. That just is, right? That's startup life. Like I think, the big joke about future financial models is they're guaranteed to be wrong. Like whatever we predict in the future, we're guaranteed to be wrong. So we try to get as close as possible. So for me, part of that, finding that balance that you're talking about is how do we make credible projections about what we can deliver and when that, we feel good about, that we're comfortable, we're able to deliver, that are
Hmm.
credible in a way that our, partner or investor on the other side of the table, our customers will understand and believe. But also give, ourselves enough grace and room to get it wrong sometimes. And sometimes we're faster than we expect, sometimes we're slower than we expect. But finding, trying to like skate to the puck the way you would talk about in hockey, I think here is just a really interesting problem. And how far out into the future we can look and how far out into the future we can talk about while still maintaining our credibility, just is an interesting balance point I think we're looking for. And it's different every day.
That's so true. Like nicely put.
We
And
talk about balance, right? I mean, I feel like we've talked about balance in 3 or 4 different ways today, but it's a
yeah,
theme.
yeah, for sure. It's like a recurring subject that happens in like different aspects of like technology development as well as like professional development, I would say.
Right? Just
Um, so now I wanted to focus a little bit, switching gears a little bit into like women in batteries itself. So have like based on your years of experience, have you noticed any patterns in the way like women navigate leadership or face technical challenges compared to women? And how do you think the industry can better support their growth?
well, you can tell from my answer to the first question about women in leadership that I don't like generalizing. So with that disclaimer, um, I think empathy is something that shows up very frequently for women. And I don't want to leave the men on the call and in the world out too. I think, I know many, many men who bring empathy to the table. But I do think it's something that, kind of women are trained and comfortable displaying more than our male colleagues. And I think that's a pattern that I love to see. And I'll pause for a second and talk about what I mean when I talk about empathy. I think
Hmm.
um, when we talk about empathy, I think there's a tendency sometimes to think we mean, weakness, softness, and what I mean is openness, curiosity and willingness to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And so I see that, when I talked about what are your strategic advantages, I think that is a superpower if you can bring empathy to the table and practice it frequently. And so what I mean by that is put yourself in the shoes of your colleague sitting next to you, put yourself in the shoes of your customer sitting across the table from you, or your investor or your board member. It gives you an opportunity to anticipate what is important to them, and just to try to just sit in their shoes. It, I think, can give you a lot of insight into why do we not have that contract signed? Maybe there's a really easy reason you can figure out if you are aware of the person sitting on the other side of the table from you. What's important to them? What motivates them? What are they afraid of? And how can you help them solve those problems? Just being aware, I think, really brings a lot of power to every relationship you have. And let's face it, that's business, right? That's leading your team, that's interfacing with the outside world. It's all relationships. And so you can improve all of your relationships by just being aware and sitting in the shoes of the other person who's across the table from you and trying to understand them. So that's a pattern that I
Yeah.
see. So, and I know you bring that to the table, Maitri. So um, uh,
Thank you,
you're on
Susan.
the same, you're
I
on the
just
same.
love the answer. Yeah. What's amazing about this answer? So this also answers like my next question, which is about what advice you would give like early career professionals. So this is awesome. Like being empathetic is like something that we can uniquely bring to the table. This is great.
I think so too. Yeah. And gosh, I jumped ahead, right? Because now I've given two two of my pieces of advice that I would repeat, which are don't be afraid of your empathy. Just it's a superpower, use it. It's don't weaponize it because that would be scary, but use it. It's very powerful. And play to your strengths. I think if you had just asked me that question cold, I would have probably given you those two answers because they've been so important to me in my career growth.
This is great. Thank you, Susan. So yeah, now I want to go to like the most exciting round. So we'll wrap up with like a lightning round, so where we'll have like quick questions and quick answers. So whatever comes to your mind first. So the first question is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear energy storage.
Batteries. That's a dumb. Blue Current.
Nice. So what is one piece of battery technology you wish existed today?
Well, I am very much an EV enthusiast, so I wish silicon solid state batteries were in vehicles today. It's
Yeah.
that's my dream. I'm gonna drive a vehicle with one of our batteries.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. What's the last book or podcast that completely blew your mind?
Oh my gosh, recency bias. And I will tell you, I'm a huge reader. Like I usually have two or three books going and I'm listening to one. I'll tell you the book I've recommended the most recently, although I read it over the summer, is Range. I just found myself recommending that to our CTO and our VP of manufacturing for different reasons. It is about how generalists thrive in a specialist world. And it's a really, really
Mm.
interesting read on leadership, teamwork, and how you can bring together a collection of people with outside different experiences and, kind of like pull together all of that different knowledge and come out with a better outcome than one specialist could do. So I love it. Recommend it to everyone. Range.
Nice. I'll add it to my list.
Yeah.
So this is like a tricky question. So who is like a historical figure that you'd love to have dinner with? Like it doesn't either battery related or not.
My gosh. Okay. Madeline Albright. I don't know if you guys remember who she was. Well, I went to Georgetown for business school and we used to walk past her house when she was still in government and still with us. And I just found her to be such a brilliant pioneer. And here I am, I said earlier in this conversation, I don't like to talk about the challenges of being female. I feel like the reason that I don't like to talk about the challenges of being female is because of people like Madeleine Albright who showed up and just got it done. I found her to be so incredible and such an impact on the world. She just showed up on the world stage and was a really just a fascinating person at a time when there weren't a lot of women in those roles. So Madeleine Albright. And for people who don't know who
Yeah.
she is, look her up because she's really interesting.
Wow, such an inspiring leader like yourself. And what my last question is, what is one word you would use to describe the future of the battery industry?
Oh, exponential. I just don't
Nice.
see how, I mean, this industry is going to continue to explode. We need more and more and more energy. When I look at some of these market sizing projections, they predate the AI boom. So, just thinking generally about how much energy we consume in this world and the growth rate of the energy we consume makes me really excited about the exponential growth we're going to keep seeing in battery.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, there's so many things going on, and it's so important to keep abreast with like the latest technology as well. The growth is just absolutely exponential.
I know.
So thank you so much, Susan. Like all your answers have been like truly inspiring and super insightful. Like I've learned a lot for sure. And I just wanted to open the floor for the audience questions. So let me pull up some of the questions in the chat.
I'll put my glasses on so I can read the chat.
So yeah, one question from Elisa Fu. How did you get involved with a startup at first, and what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Um, I got involved in startups. Well, I mean, for the first time when I was an investment banker, because we had a couple of startups that were clients. So that was just a really interesting. I got to meet entrepreneurs who had lived through the life cycle of growing a company and then were ultimately selling it. So that was really my first entry point to working with startups. Um, the way that I got into startup leadership was kind of classic as a VC. I invested in the company and Ubiquitous Energy, the last company that I was CEO at, I was an investor. I was on the board. I partnered really closely with the CEO, who was also the inventor of the technology. And when it came time to hit the growth inflection point and commercialize the technology, it was really too much for him to do two jobs. He was CEO and CTO. So we decided to split the role up, and I came in as CEO, and he moved over to the CTO seat. My advice to people just starting out is there is no path. There is no right way to do it. There is no wrong way to do it. The fact that you're here and you're meeting people in our little, small chats, and the fact that you're out networking and talking to people, if you want to work in startups, that is absolutely critical, and that's going to be your path in. Is just relationships, telling people you're interested, getting to know people, following along, and be ready when an opportunity hits.
Nicely put. And the other question from Julie Ha is, as someone coming from economics MBA background, what resources did you use to learn about and understand technology, like meeting with experts, taking courses, reading books, etc.? Do you think the same approach can be used for someone coming from engineering, wanting to learn a bit about the economics and business side? And a follow-up question to that from Maya is that what tips would you recommend to someone when they're first making the transition?
So I'll answer that question words. Do I think you can go easily from, the engineering side more to the business side, which is just kind of how I think about, like the finance side of the house? Yes, absolutely. And I think the process is the same. I would tell you I've been at this long enough that I have a good sense for how I learn. So that's I think step one is, figuring out what's the most efficient way for yourself to learn. For me, it's generally reading and talking to people more so than structured classes. So, um, I've now had the opportunity to learn two different technologies in two different industries. And I have been unlucky enough to have to do those both while I've been in the CEO seat. So, some of the Blue Current folks on the call are probably laughing, recalling my first couple of days on the job when, I was like, wait, what's a cathode again? What is that? What's the, really just learning. But I think for me, the most important thing has been talking to people in the industry, and that's dual purpose, right? I learn. I'm an external processor, so I get to tell people what I'm thinking, test out my theories, test out what I think I know, learn from them, but also form the relationship while I'm doing it. That's kind of why I think that's a double duty. So what's my advice on how to, make the shift in one direction or the other is be curious, ask a bunch of questions. And I saw somewhere in the chat, it looked like somebody was asking about empathy as a weakness. I think, or, being viewed as a weakness. I don't know about that. Sure. I think when you say empathy, people can view it as a weakness. I think there's also, but if you just practice it, you're just showing up and, being a good leader, and nobody knows that you're using your empathy as a secret weapon. Um, I think asking questions is also sometimes viewed as a weakness. And I will tell you, strike that from your brain. Not true. Pay attention when you're in the room. The people who are asking smart questions and are paying attention and are not afraid to say, I don't know and I would like to, those are generally the most confident and strongest people in the room. Pay attention to them, and yeah, just ask questions. Don't let something pass you by. If you don't understand, just ask. That's how you're going to learn, and how you're going to show that you're open and curious and ready to be a leader.
I think this is great. Like, thank you for being so open about it. It's not always that we get to hear from women leaders like yourself, you know. It's really nice, like having your openness. I think we have like time for like one last question. And yeah, so I think Emma, I think you've raised your hand. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for your talk today. I have both a technical question. I did my PhD in solid state batteries, but I also have a professional question. So I'll let you choose which one you want to answer.
Oh, you're not gonna, it's a trick. We don't get you don't tell us the questions first.
Oh, I mean, okay, I can ask both and you can choose which one to answer. So on the solid state battery side, right, I spent whatever 6 years pelletizing, making solid state batteries by hand. And it's always been interesting to me to think about how that translates to, pilot or production scale, because what does roll to roll look like in a solid state battery world? I can't imagine it. And so I'm very interested to see what the technical challenges are there for you. And then on the professional side, as someone who's been in academia, I'm doing a postdoc now, considering industry. One of the major factors that has impacted me as a woman is the idea of non-promotable labor. So doing things like being the one asked to organize something because I'm really good at organizing, or asking to do some of the more administrative things, even in a technical environment. And those are the things that I experience more so maybe in academia and are non-promotable in academia. And I just wondered how those translate to things like management and leadership in industry, and how I can see those maybe or harness them as strengths.
I love that question. Okay, I'll give you the really quick technical. How's that? And then we'll
I like it both. Okay.
Well, my technical answer is kind of a non-answer, which is we are literally starting process development on our pilot line right now. So ask me again in a couple of months, and we'll
Sure.
maybe crisper answer.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. I think our advanced manufacturing team, I think, has a really good process that we're working through that I think is going to be remarkable and solve some of those challenges that we're used to. So stay tuned on scaling up the battery itself. On the non-promotable labor, I think it's such an important point. And, I will tell you, it's really easy from sitting where I'm sitting to give you, kind of like the CEO answers. And I remember being there where you're talking about. And it's really hard. Like, at least for me, like it's hard to say no, especially because I care about people. And so if someone, even today, like if somebody's sitting in our conference room and they're a guest at Blue Curren and they don't have water, I want to get up and get them some water because I care about them and I want them water. And I think it's really hard to say no when someone is like, Emma, you're so great at planning the party because you planned it last time. Good job. So why would you not do it again? So I truly don't have good advice. I know how hard it is to say no. I think a strategy that I used is to recruit others, especially others who may not get asked to do those things, to join me in whatever the non-promotable labor is. That's a strategy that I've used successfully. I think it's also, sometimes you got to make yourself uncomfortable. And that does mean saying no. If you're asked to take notes and it is, definitively not your role to take notes, to turn to somebody else in the room who is maybe more junior than you and to say, Jim, can you take notes today? Or just sit there when somebody's getting the coffees and passing out the food catering in the conference room. Just sit there and let somebody bring it to you. It's really hard, but you'll get, but it's really hard.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the being able to at least relate to it, and that's pretty good advice.
Yeah, there's no magic bullet or yeah, you just got to work through it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, it's nearing 9, so it's time to wrap up the questions. There are still some great questions in the chat box, but thank you so much for taking the time, Susan, for sharing your insights today. And I feel like you've really empowered all of us to pursue a career in batteries. Before we wrap things up, I just wanted to share some quick announcements from the Volta side. Dana is going to publish more in the group chat. So we do have the Women in Batteries conference coming up at Stanford University, and we have a great lineup of speakers planned out, and it's also going to be an awesome networking opportunity. So please join us on July 30th and 31st. We also have the Battery Social happening at London and the Battery Social at the Battery Show Europe. And we have the Battery Forum, which is like the largest virtual battery conference happening on June 12th. So yeah, stay tuned for all these events. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending today's Women in Batteries interview series. And once again, like a great thank you to Susan for like sharing her wisdom and experience with us.
Thank you. And please, I keep telling everyone I'm new to the industry. I need friends. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know as many of you as I can. And thank you so much for being here this morning and listening in, and to the Volta folks for inviting me and hosting me. This has been really fun. So thank you.
Thank you. And also for those who want to rewatch this interview, we'll also be publishing this on YouTube in the next day or two. So please be on the lookout if you wanted to catch the replay. But thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good day, everyone.